Hello and welcome to Talking Reds, a Nottingham Forest podcast hosted by myself, Greg Oram, and my fellow Forest fan from across the Atlantic, Richard Spray. I am a closet Trekkie, I have to say. How you doing, Richard?
Phenomenal. And you threw that in there too. You just touched on a little nerd vibe. That's great. I love it. Good morning. How you guys doing?
We're all good, man. It's 30-odd years since Aston Villa beat Nottingham Forest at the City Ground. And after a mad final 15 minutes in yesterday's head-to-head, their wait continues as Forest produced a stunning comeback after going 1-0 down in the second half. A late goal from the Serbinator, Nikola Milenkovic, dragged Forest level before a late goal in added time from super sub Anthony Elanga sealed a memorable and another fantastic victory and 3 points to move the Reds back up to fourth in the table. And newsflash, Manchester United have literally just beaten Man City, so Forest are staying fourth as well. Here with Richard and I to try and make sense of all of it, we have the Statman Danscape and hollerin in from that there Texas. It's the Talking Reds Cowboy, Bruce Johnston.
But I hadn't been forgotten, Joe. I've been married a long time ago. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe? But I hadn't been forgotten, Joe. I've been married a long time ago. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe?
Yeah! Howdy, Bruce. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you. That was a great intro music. That's one of my daughter's favorites. So
perfect. I think that's possibly going to be now your intro music, I think, going forward. I don't know. I didn't think of it before. Danscape, you're at the match. How you doing today, mate?
Yeah, really good. After the preview show when I was hungover, I can promise you there's no better cure for a hangover than a Forest win in the last minute. Definitely.
And for those of you that did see the preview show and perhaps saw Master Daniel disappear off screen for about 45 seconds, yes, I can now confirm that was to go and evacuate something into the toilet. So none of that tonight, please, Daniel. All right. Thank you very much. Okay, on we go.
Amazon delivery.
Amazon delivery, yes. Don't forget to join in with us in the chat. You can drop your comments. There's a few coming in already. If you don't say hi, we don't know you're here. You know the drill. We want to give out shout outs if we can. And of course, welcome to all the listeners on Apple and Spotify. We thank you for joining in the fun as well. Okay, continuing the cowboy theme.
Howdy, y'all. Thank you for tuning in to Talking Reds, a Nottingham Forest podcast. While you're here, please do us a favor and head over right now and hit the like button on this video. And if you haven't already, we'd really appreciate it if you could push the subscribe button too. That way, you can be sure not to miss any future episode from Talking Reds. Apple and Spotify listeners, you can also follow us on your platform. And if you're feeling creative and generous, we definitely would welcome any 5-star reviews. Thank you once again for all your support. Come on, you Reds.
Indeed. Come on, you Reds. Thank you very much for that message. Let's get straight into it. Richard Spray. I think I'm still on cloud nine. Sum it up for us. How are you feeling after yesterday? How did you think the match went? I mean, we're going to get into the nitty gritty, but just give us some general thoughts to start with.
Yeah, pleased with the team selection. Pleased with just the overall flow of play. I thought we were a lot more front foot for the majority of the match. Nice to see some increased possession as well, trying to build to a goal. I think we had added another open play goal, so I'm sure we'll get into that as well. So just comprehensively fantastic. How could you not be elated, excited, exhilarated, ecstatic, all those other E words that you want to throw out there for what we just watched. So yeah, definitely. It kind of is akin, and Bruce will know what I'm talking about when it comes to American football. It's like when you get that last second field goal to win, it just feels different, even though the lead up to that is so painful and such a struggle. The fact that you walk away with it and can feel like, hey, you know what? We look like we were down, but we picked ourselves back up. We stayed stout. We stayed composed, and we finished the match out well. So can't be anything but it just excited for what's to come.
Fantastic. Just want to quickly put some shout outs. The little Layla Ladybug is in the comments there. Layla, how you doing over in Oklahoma? The mini spray is with us. Great to have you there. Afternoon also to Gary, it is the afternoon, kind of early evening, Gary. Good to see you. Jackie's with us. Hey, Jackie. Caden Knives. He's liked and will watch on replay. So thank you very much for that. Mark Walwell, once again, another £2 super chat. Thank you so much. Still in fourth as Man United just beat City. Yes, indeed. Get in there. Pat Brett from the States. Oh, yeah, good old Cardinal Joe. We're having a bit of a cowboy party all of a sudden. I don't know why. I don't even know where that came from. But, hey, we're going to continue it because it is just an amazing feeling when we're sitting fourth in the Premier League. Hey, Bruce, give us your match thoughts or your first kind of like overview of how you thought the match unfolded.
It was it was an evenly matched game, and I mean that in a positive way because Villa's a solid squad. They're in the Champions League, and they're going to advance in the Champions League. And we went punch for punch with them, and it was exciting to see. This is, I've been excited already this season because we're doing well, but this is, in my mind, we flipped the switch, and I think we've gone to the next level. I've commented on social media a few times. We're winning the league. We're winning the league. I don't think we're winning the league, guys. So not getting ahead of myself there, but we kept up with a very good side yesterday, and all optimism over here.
What about you, Danscape? You were at the match sitting in Lower Brian Clough. I think you said you were about at the halfway line. How did you enjoy that one?
Yeah, the first half didn't cause me any problems with my neck muscles. I sat on the halfway line. The entire game was like right there between the edge of the centre circle each way. And it was just midfielders running back and forth like 5-10 yards, and that was it. So at first, the atmosphere in the ground just wasn't being matched by the football. You could tell people were ready to kind of go for it, and the game wasn't like that. And obviously, second half, completely different. And I can't think of the last game that felt that good at the final whistle at the City Ground that I've been to. I've probably missed a couple of the good ones, but that was just amazing.
Yeah, you sent me the sound clip that you recorded from the end of the game. I haven't loaded it up because it's just a lot of clapping on the sound clip. You can tell that in the background, everyone's just so happy. And then, of course, they come in with the status quo and everyone's singing and dancing along. And I was watching the game, as I always do, sat at my dad's just a few doors down. So me, my dad, and Orlando. And I really felt that, this Aston Villa team was there for the taking. I was really impressed with how we had quite a good amount of possession in the first half. We seemed to be going down our left as much as possible, giving the ball to Callum, who I thought had his best game for a while, and we can talk more about him in this episode. But, as the game moved into the second half, I still felt fairly confident. But then we had that sucker punch moment with the Duran goal. And the funny thing is, I keep calling it the bounce back ability that this Forest team have got. I still felt, okay, 1-0 down. I think we can still get something out of this. At that point, you're going to take a draw. You're going to be happy with the point. But to kind of put in that performance of the last 20 minutes, even because of this loud goal and then everything how it unfolded, it just said to me that this is a different type of Forest team to what we've been used to seeing. They've gone through the layers. They've gone through the promotion team and how good they were, albeit in the Championship, and that sudden miracle. They've gone through that first season in the Premier League with a massive influx of players that it'd be so difficult for anyone to manage. And I think if you look back on that, even now, but again, in 5-10 years' time, you think, how on earth did someone like Steve Cooper really manage to integrate so many players into a team? Because they all needed game time. They all needed to show what they could do. And we know that when you try and introduce 2 or 3 players or 5 players, getting them to gel with the current squad can take a lot of time. And we had a whole new squad. So that kind of transition from that into season 2, we're still moving forwards. But to see how they're performing now, and then when that final whistle went, I was just elated, especially because we'd experienced a similar feeling only 7 days before with the 5:30 kickoff result away at Man United. So I'm feeling amazingly good. And for Man City to lose to Man United in the last minute or so, for us to stay fourth, it just feels great, Richard. So I want to give you my kind of general feelings and match kind of thoughts before we kind of get into the proper conversation. But let's talk about team selection, buddy, because we always toy around with that beforehand. We saw one change, Jota Silva coming out and actually Nico Dominguez coming in. And he kind of operated on that right side. We know he can be quite defensive-minded. Were you quite happy with the shape and how we set up?
Yeah, I was. I mean, it felt like there were certainly moments where at the beginning of at least in the first half, Anderson was getting a little bit worked over by, Morgan Rogers, which he's a brilliant footballer, so you can't be surprised by that. Some of his angles were a little off. He's kind of getting turned around a little bit. But as a general rule, from a compactness standpoint, from a shape standpoint, it felt like we were doing a lot more to counteract what other teams had realized. Hey, if you set up this way, if you play and operate in this way, here's how you're gonna be able to get through them and get through that defensive line. And the way that our shape had set up, and we didn't see guys get pulled away from the middle as much as we've seen in past matches. And, guys like Yates, I went back and watched it again and was pleasantly surprised by how well he managed things. Initially, I was thinking like looks like he's a little bit off. And he's certainly been off in previous matches, but in this match, I think he stayed very, very sort of, not want to call it stationary, but very, very, composed in terms of where he was at on the pitch and his awareness and things like that. So yeah, as a general whole, I thought it turned out really, really beautifully. I mean, seeing Jota get dropped, I was kind of concerned. I'm like, well, what is the purpose of that, considering how well he's been playing recently? But when you look at what they did in terms of how Nico Dominguez dropped back and helped to manage that side of the pitch, it worked out exactly as it needed to. And you did see a lot of fluidity too. I mean, you saw Nico Dominguez on the other side of the pitch at times. And so there just felt like there was a lot more movement than we've seen in previous matches. So very positive in general.
I didn't think Villa really bothered us too much. The only thing that was of concern, Bruce, was the shout for the penalty when Morgan Rogers was wriggling with Anderson and had hold of his collar, went into the penalty box, and he seemed to tug him back. What did you think? Did you think it was a penalty?
Yeah. I thought that was a penalty. I thought we got away with that. Watching the replay, it looked worse than it was live. So I was surprised that when VAR took a look, giving our past history with VAR, that they waved it on. I understand there was a little bit of a tug from Rogers to Anderson prior, or would he grab his shirt? So maybe that was why they called it off. But the explanation was I didn't necessarily get it, but hey, I'll take it. When your luck is good, it's good.
What about you, Dan? From when you were sat in the stadium, what did you think?
On the penalty, there wasn't much reaction, I don't think, in the ground to it. It seemed like a 50-50. And having watched it back, for me, it's not a penalty. Like, I don't want to see that kind of thing given for a penalty. I think Rogers can stay on his feet and do more damage rather than sort of kick his own leg to sort of trip himself over and make it more than it is. I think, yes, he tugs his arm, but personally for me, I do not want to see that kind of thing given as a penalty, even if, yes, you've seen it in the past. And that's not being a Forest buyer. I think that's just a reasonably 50-50 challenge on that one. So I don't mind that decision. I think that worked out well. But yeah, that was probably like what was there, one save in the first half? So like there wasn't much else to focus on other than that, really. I think there's one save from us, and other than that, it felt like basically whoever kicked off the game, it felt like they sort of knocked the ball 5 yards through the team and then took a few steps back and says, go on then, break us down somehow. You have a go at breaking us down, and then we'll take the ball back and we'll sort of have half a chance of breaking you down. But there wasn't any real intent from either team. I wouldn't say Villa came looking for a draw, but they came to keep it very tight that first half. And they sort of knew that they couldn't afford to stretch the game and run the full length of the pitch for 90 minutes and all that sort of stuff. So it wasn't much of a spectacle other than probably the penalty shout.
Well, what do you think, Richard, on that penalty? Well, whilst we're there, did you think, trying to be as objective as possible, did you think it was a penalty?
I did at the time. I kind of concur with Dan upon secondary review. It probably felt like what undid Morgan Rogers with the fact was the fact that his momentum wasn't as much impacted so much by the way that he kind of flopped, if you want to call it that, the way he kind of dove forward, made it exaggerated the moment, made it seem probably, I don't know if you want to say it sort of skewed the perception of the VAR. There certainly was a little bit of a tug. You can argue about how long that tug was. I mean, it always looks much more egregious in slow motion anyway. But I definitely thought so at the time. Upon secondary review, I would say no. But we're seeing kind of a pattern of some of this stuff. Like, for example, I think of Nico Williams last year, where he got trod on, and I think it was against Fulham, and he got trod on his foot, but then he kind of dove a millisecond or a second after that happened. And they didn't really buy it, right? They didn't seem to feel like when he went to ground, the actual action of stepping on his foot really had any impact. And it kind of felt somewhat akin to that. I understand he didn't step on him, but the reality of the going to ground moment not really being impacted by the contact. So, and I think there was another one we saw last week as well. There was a similar, I'm trying to remember the match it was, but I know Raph and I were conversing about it, where it's like the guy stepped on his foot, clearly it fouled him in the box, but because when he went down shortly after that action occurred, it VAR didn't seem to buy it. So it seems like that's sort of been a tendency this the last year or so, compared to what we're probably used to. Foul's a foul in the box, but, and I know, I think it was somebody on the comment, one of the commentators said that's a foul anywhere else on the pitch, which, okay, I guess you could make that case, but upon secondary review, I would not say that's a penalty.
See, I watched it and I saw it and I thought it was a penalty when I first saw it, and watching it on the replay, I even more think it's a penalty. I'm actually astonished it wasn't given. I'd want a penalty all day long if that was a Forest player getting tugged. He fouled him. He pulled him back. I mean, to me, it's a blatant penalty. It's stone wall. I cannot believe it wasn't given.
But do you want it as a penalty, or do you just mean in reference to other penalties? As in, like, would you not like if he'd have carried on there, he could have still created a game, but it almost encourages players to go down then because it's like more likely to score.
I do want it as a penalty, actually. In answer to your question, he fouled him. He dragged him back. There's no two ways about it. You can't, like, Richard, if that's anywhere else on the football field, it's a foul, 100%. You can't raise the bar on what a foul is in the penalty box. That's not in the laws of football.
You should in a penalty box.
But it's not, though. But it's not. But you thinking we should do that and it being in the laws of football are two different things. The laws of football do not state the threshold for a penalty is much higher if it's in the box. If it's a foul on the pitch, wherever it is, a free kick is given. If you happen to be in the box, you get a penalty. And it's as simple as that. It is that black and white. He pulls him back. And I would be going mental if that had been Gibbs White getting pulled back by Ezri Konsa or whoever, because he pulls him back. Does he make the most of it? Possibly. But yeah, I mean, I just think we got away with that. I'm going to put my hand on my heart and say, if that had been given as a penalty, I would not be complaining. But hey, listen, we've debated that. I'm glad that it wasn't given. Obviously, yeah, Pat's right in the comments. Look, we're not debating that. We're debating the actual action of the penalty. VAR does not have any capability to go back and look at fouls outside of the box. It only has the capability to go back and look at a penalty. It can only look at a penalty. It cannot say anything else. So when we're going to judge the penalty incident on its own merits in isolation, it's a stone cold penalty. Morgan Rogers is also fouling Anderson going into the box. I believe he is God of his shirt, clear as day. So you might say, well, look, it's evened itself out. That's maybe why VAR didn't give it. But again, that's not in the rules. That's not in the rules. So look, we're dealing with the humans and we're dealing with their own interpretation of things. Like I said, I'm a Forest fan. I don't want it to be a penalty, but I also want to be as honest as I can and say this is how I saw it. And I actually really think it was a penalty. But hey, listen, we're fourth, and that's all that matters. Ladybug Lena loves your background. She calls you Richard. Shouldn't it be Daddy?
I guess. Yeah, maybe she's trying to be cloak and dagger. I don't know. That's interesting.
I know. Tim Easton says he was a little concerned when he looked at the run of games, but we have smashed it. And Matt says, what happened to the supercomputer predictions? lads, I think you're perhaps talking about our pre-season stuff. Richard's going to get them up and we'll have a look at them at the end of this episode. We can see where we are. If you can have a quick look for those, Richard, that would be really good, good to get those as well. I think you should hopefully have them to hand. Mark is saying Brentford will be tough as they are top of the form table. That's true, and especially at home. We have played Liverpool, Chelsea, Man City United and Arsenal. 7 points from them. Really, really good. Anna, how you doing, Anna? Just tuning in. Yes, what a result it was last night. she wasn't at the match because she was at her work's Christmas do. I saw her put that out on Twitter. Feeling very ropey today, Dr. Anna. Well, take a paracetamol and put your feet up. And if you're feeling rough in the morning, call the doctor. What I will say is that we're going to move on to talking about the second half now. Bruce, Forest came out and, 0-0, we're at home. I kind of thought if we can get the start we had against United in the second half and it'll really get us going. But it wasn't to be. We got the sucker punch of them scoring literally 3 minutes after Emilio Martinez pulled off quite possibly one of the best saves I've ever seen. And I know they're howling about it on Sky and so on. So let's just kind of rewind. The corner comes in, the ball hits Nico Dominguez. What did you make of that save? And did you think at that point it's just not going to be our day?
No, I did not think that. I thought it was an amazing save. My first impression, I thought it went in. I thought, why aren't they blowing the whistle? I thought it went in. And then upon replay, you saw it. And what a save. I mean, that's why he's a world-class keeper. That's why he's getting paid as much as he's getting paid, right? It was amazing save. But no, I never thought we were out. I thought it was a pretty evenly matched game until their goal, which was a well taken goal by Duran. But even after that, we responded very well. We were definitely up for it after their goal. We didn't sit back and wait for it. It was a good response by our boys.
Dan, in the stadium, did it kind of go a bit flat? I mean, talk to us about the Emilio Martinez save, because we were kind of on top at that point. Some nice passing movements coming down the left-hand side. Hudson-Odoi getting a lot of the ball again. And it was, I think it was his shot that skimmed off a player. In fact, it looked on the screen like it might have been a free kick, actually. But we got the corner, which came floating over. And did it look in from where you were?
Yeah, it definitely looked in. Couldn't work out whether it was a brilliant save or whether it just sort of hit his legs, or it just seemed like everyone was ready to jump up. It was going in, and somehow they stopped it on the line. I think we probably had this. We were second best in those first sort of 10 minutes of that half, just until that save, and then that seemed to sort of put us more on the front foot. And then against the run of play was when they scored, when they moved the ball quickly for the first time, really, in the entire game, and just put the ball in the box rather than everybody, being cautious around the box, taking the extra touch, taking the extra pass. That was the first time where McGinn had enough time to just pop a ball onto the penalty spot, which is his entire game. That's what he does. Whenever you watch him, he takes one touch and he just crosses the ball onto the penalty spot, and there's a striker there. So that was the first time they got that little bit of extra time and speed, and then that, obviously sort of, it felt a little bit like it was going against us at that point.
What about you, Richard? I mean, the save was insane, purely because it was so close to him, and it looked like he was able to adjust his feet, know where he was, and pull the ball back off the line. So I felt, we were knocking on the door. For their goal, is anyone in our defence culpable? Goalkeeper, perhaps? What are you thinking?
Yeah, it's tough. I've watched it back a couple of times, including probably replaying that. And my initial thought was Yates seemed like his engagement with Morgan Rogers was a little bit haphazard, number one, because he basically kicked him. I think he kind of swung his leg almost. So had they got the advantage given, I think that would have been a foul outside the box just by the way that he played it. So it kind of didn't feel like he stood him up and tried to get in front of him. But Morgan Rogers did a good job of dropping the ball off. I don't know. I mean, you can maybe say Nico could have done better in terms of allowing Morgan to kind of cross the front of goal. Didn't seem to stay with him as well. Kind of similar to another goal we saw where it seemed like James Ward-Prowse didn't stay with the shooter in that moment. No, I mean, it's just a brilliant ball. And I think it was Dina. Was it McGinn or Dina that brought kick? I think it was McGinn. Yeah.
It was McGinn.
I mean, it's just a brilliant ball, and it had the right kind of pace and the right kind of curve to it. And then just the header was phenomenal. I mean, that's like a proper professional Premier League striker header, right? In terms of the way that he angled it and the kind of pace he put on it. So no, I'm not going to hold anybody's feet to the fire, so to speak. And in terms of blame in that moment, it just felt like it was a well executed goal. My thing was, right after that, I was just proud of the fact that, once we got a goal disallowed, we just didn't give up. We didn't seem like we got too deflated, even though it felt like it was trending towards one of those matches where it was a what if match, right? Kind of similar to Bournemouth or against Fulham, where we could have won. But thankfully that wasn't the case. But yeah, no one's to blame for that goal, man. I think it's just a well executed Premier League goal.
Yeah, I think I agree. I've seen one or two people maybe say that the ball was going down Sells' throat, but the ball was fired in, or headed in, I should say, literally from the penalty spot. And it was a bullet header, slightly off his line. I'm not going to hold Sells culpable for that at all. But it kind of came at a point when, as I said, we seemed like we were on top. And I just wondered, was it going to be one of those days where we've played well, we've had good possession of the ball, which is unusual for us because we tend to concede possession even at home and kind of play them more on the counter. But we were definitely trying to break them down more using the left-hand side an awful lot. And Callum Hudson-Odoi, Bruce, looked like he had, he looked like he was interested, really interested last night. Not saying that he's never not interested, but, he just looked more lively. He looked like he was really up for it, got a lot of touches from him. Do you think now that maybe that's a possibility that we're going to start to see some of those goals flying in from him again?
At the very least, he's going to be involved. There was a stat that popped up on the stream I was watching that at one point 76% of our forward movement was through Callum Hudson-Odoi, or that side at least, which just shows you what kind of player he is and what he brings to the game. But he seemed to be crossing a lot more today, and that's probably a lot to do with how Villa was defending him. Because every time we tried to hit him on a counter, they were back. They were back fast. There was three back, very fast to stop anything we had. So to your point of trying to break him down more, I think that's what Callum was doing really well, just getting forward, getting past his defender, putting the ball at least in the box to give somebody a shot.
So the substitutions, the first substitutions Nuno made, Danscape, we saw Morato coming on with Jota Silva. So Murillo's gone off, looked like he must have picked up a little knock. So something in the first half. So Morato comes in. So we're not going to the back three. And, Morata's getting a chance to come in and play in the back two with Milenkovic, which I thought this is going to be interesting. And I'm interested to hear how you thought he got on, because he's a player that we were talking about in the build up, and Jota comes on as well, with Ryan Yates going off, who also got a bit of a knock in the first half. It looked to me like Nuno wasn't going to sit back; he was trying to make an impression on the game. So when you saw those two changes coming on, were you happy?
I was interested to see Morato, and I don't know how you always seem to pick the stuff to talk about before the game that we didn't see coming, and then all of a sudden he's there playing as one of the two centre backs, and he did a brilliant job, I thought, throughout the whole game, and obviously for the most part in the final goal when he wins the ball back high up the pitch. So that was his biggest impact. But he did a great job throughout, and yeah, there he is. He's on part two, I'll say it in English, but part two of his clean sheet attempt. So he's on to 79 minutes this time around. So hopefully next week, we never know. We don't know what's up with Murillo. I don't know if anyone's heard how bad his injury is, but potentially Morato could be getting a lot more time next week. So hopefully if he comes away with a clean sheet from Brentford, who are throwing goals in for fun at home, that'll be a pretty good going. The other sub, I didn't know. I don't think Jota had much impact on the wing. I think we saw the difference when Elanga came onto the wing. That pace really caused them a problem, whereas Jota didn't have that threat out wide. So when he moves more central, and obviously Gibbs, White and Anderson then drop in to play just the two in midfield with Jota in there and Elanga wide, that looked really good. That caused them a lot of problems as they dropped off us. But basically, after Villa scored, they didn't have another shot on goal till the 94th minute or something. After we'd gone 2-1 up. So I think they sort of allowed us to come on to them a little bit too much. Maybe because they're tired, maybe just because they thought they could do enough to keep us out. So it was good to see that we took the front foot and we actually took the game to them and made the subs, further down the line that made the difference in the game.
Wolfie from Forest Fan TV is in the chat. Evening, boys. Legit fourth, Cloud 9. Yep, we feel the same way, buddy. I was on Forest Fan TV on Thursday night, and we were talking about Morato because we'd spoken about him in our build-up show on Thursday morning, and I wanted to kind of continue that on FFTV, and we were kind of got into it a little bit about Wolfie kind of posed the question, are you looking for him to start? And I said, no, I'm not looking for him to start. I was looking for him in terms of I'm not looking for him to replace Murillo or Milenkovic. But then we kind of elaborated and said, well, look, obviously there's going to be a game, a suitable game where we decide to play three at the back from the start, as we have done previously and so on. But it is interesting that, he was someone that I wanted to speak about. And he just seems to have a really good, calm presence when he came onto the pitch, Richard. And yet again, it just shows the recruitment this summer has been particularly strong. And if we happen to see Murillo not able to play against Brentford, and I hope he can play because I think he's really important to us, I now feel even more confident that if Morato comes in to play against Milenkovic, or with Milenkovic, I should say, that actually we're going to still be pretty solid. What do you think?
No, I'd agree with that. I think I mentioned, I don't know if it was on the last episode or not, but he's a deceptively athletic guy. I mean, if you look at it from like a spectrum of players, right, who play that position, maybe Milenkovic is on one side in terms of his, he's not quite as agile, forward moving player, but he definitely will do that. He's a little bit more of a traditional sort of center back. Murillo is probably on the opposite end of the spectrum, where he's has more agility, has more pace, has a tendency to want to move forward, has a little bit more range of passing, things of that nature. And then Morato, to me, is kind of somewhere in between, right? So I know we posed the question too, not only about a start, but is he the succession plan to Murillo? And I personally believe he is. And I think it's good to see one of the benefits we'll get if he is starting. Not that it's good to have Murillo off the pitch. I'm not saying that. Please, nobody come at me about that. The reality, though, is it does help develop some chemistry between him and Milenkovic, because assuming that someone doesn't come with ridiculous money to try to steal Milenkovic away, that looks like the pairing we're going to see potentially, after the summer window. So excited to see how that dynamic develops. But he definitely, I think Anna put it in the comments too. Yeah, timed his brilliant interception to kind of drive that goal. I mean, he was a catalyst to that. So that awareness is there. That ability to make up ground to intercept the ball as he did is there. So it's definitely a lot of positives to take away from just, again, a very short amount of time that we've had him on the pitch. But it doesn't worry me as much as it probably previously did, because we just didn't have enough awareness of what kind of player he is and how he could perform. Because I don't know about anybody else. I haven't spent a considerable amount of time going back and watching Benfica highlights, but he definitely seems like he can hold his own. And he's definitely got the size and physicality that we need to keep that more of a Konate and Virgil van Dijk type of pairing than what we see with Milenkovic and Murillo.
Evening to Friar Tuck, going back to the penalty incident, he's adamant as well that Anderson had his shirt pulled first. And listen, we agree. I think if you take the whole incident as one, then the first foul is the one on Anderson. So yeah, it's definitely which should be our ball. But like I said, we were just kind of saying about that incident in the penalty box. I still think that was a penalty. Kingdom of Boxing. I love that tag name. Yep, Anderson shouldn't be doing that. Anna agreed that it should be a penalty as well. And also we're saying hi to Andy Kale, NFFC. Good to have you with us, Andy. Tricky Fred. Yes. Don't forget Bolly's cameo too. Awesome. We're going to come to that. Don't worry. I'm not going to let Danscape not have a chance to discuss the glorious Mr. Willy Bolly. We'll come to that soon, I promise. But it was the 84th minute, and we're pressing for that equaliser, Bruce. Elanga's on the pitch, looking to make an impact. The ball gets fed to him down the side, and he sweeps it over, and there's Chris Wood to pop the ball in the net. I'm running around my dad's living room going nuts, shaking Orlando for crazy, dying for a wee at the same time, I should add. So I'm trying to hold my son, going nuts. And then the VAR comes into play. I mean, I thought it was going to be given as a goal, but alas, it was offside. Just sum up your thoughts on that one.
So first of all, that was beautiful build-up play in general. And I think it was Morgan that fed Elanga for the cross, was it not? It was good play, and that's when I knew, okay, we got a game here. We're going to at least come away with the draw. The goal itself, very much like you, Greg, when it went in, I immediately started screaming and fist pumping. Did not even see that they were checking VAR at first, and when they saw the replay, I was like, yeah, it was offsides. It was offsides. They caught it. But still, it was great build-up play. So that was the positive. And we were like, okay, Martinez is human. We can get one past him. Let's keep going for it.
Yeah, I mean, look, 84th minute, the goal gets ruled out, Dan, and I'm thinking, maybe it just isn't to be. But they just kept coming. Forest just kept coming. So Milenkovic, what can I say? He is just the main man. I said at the start of the season in our show that I had him down as the guy that I think is going to be the difference this season. I said I think he's going to be the player of the season. He's going to cut out our problems at set pieces defensively, and he's going to be a colossus when it comes to towering some balls into the back of the net. When that ball went in, how good was it in the stadium?
Yeah, the extra frustration from the VAR goal because of how long it took as well, and the shouting against FVAR and all that was just like incredibly loud. So all that energy, to get the goal so quickly afterwards as well, it all came out. I was actually worried that one was going to be looked at from VAR, because from where I was sat, it looked like someone must have pushed Martinez into the goal with the ball as like a follow up, because you just couldn't quite work out how it had gone in where it had gone in. So I was thinking, oh no, there's going to be a foul on the keeper, and that's going to rule that one out. So I was waiting for the check, but yeah, nothing came of it, and happy days. And then to be honest, then you're thinking, all right, happy with the point. We've come back into it. Let's just kind of see it out, and did not expect obviously what came after that.
Disallowed goal, Richard, was on the 84th minute. The Milenkovic goal was on the 87th minute. I knew that we'd had the lengthy VAR, and yes, Gary, the VAR did give me loads of time to go for a wee, which I did do. So I managed to get the wee in, don't worry. But I knew we had possibly 6 or 7 minutes of added time to come. I know what I said to my dad and my son when it went 1-1. What were you thinking at that point?
I'm ashamed to say that I was just like, oh, thank goodness, at least we're going to get a draw out of this, so we're not coming away with nothing. Because after just the way things had unfolded, like you said, I think they had 0 big chances, I guess. Is that the nomenclature, Dan? Big chances within the match. And so
they had
one
header from a corner, which was half decent, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So there really wasn't a lot there, as you pointed out, Greg. So once they got that goal, it just felt like it's going to be one of those matches where we just feel like we completely dominate, or we seem to dominate the vast majority of the match, and then just sort of give it away towards the latter portion of the match. And so I was happy just to get it back. So excited. I mean, lost my ever-loving mind in my living room watching it, and just coming away going, oh, okay, we can at least see this out. Make sure we get a point out of this, so at least we don't come away with it with 0. I did not expect them to just keep coming in a relentless manner. It felt very sort of similar to the end of the Chelsea match, where we got down to 10 men and we just decided to just up the intensity by a few notches, and it was just great to see. I mean, a microcosm, I think, of what the difference is between us this year against years past is those kinds of moments seemed we would not come away with a point. We would not come away with a victory. We'd seemingly just sort of give up, at that point, and just kind of resign ourselves to a result. That's not what happened. And I think that's a testament to the kinds of players we have, but it's also a testament to the culture that Nuno's built. There just seems to be a lot more willingness to not let that overcome us when things don't go our way, basically.
Well, what I said to my dad was, we've got time to win this. And we all looked and agreed. We all said, my dad agreed. And it just felt like we had that momentum. And with a couple of minutes left in the game, plus the added time, the momentum was with us. I said, we've got time to win this. I don't quite know that I believed that Forest were going to try to win it, but they did. They've got this, as Andy Cale says in the comments, he says, the team have adapted this never give up to the whistle attitude, which I love, which I think we all love. And I think he's right. With Elanga going onto the pitch, he says, he was on with 20 minutes left at the game of the game, run around like a terrier and try and pinch your goal. So that's what they did. They kept pressing. We talked about Morato interceding on the left-hand side in the build-up to the goal. Bruce, there was a coming together with Matty Cash and Anderson just prior to the cross. Lots of Villa fans are bemoaning that, saying it was a clear foul. How did you see it?
I thought it was a 50-50 call, and this ref hadn't been giving 60-40 calls yesterday. So I don't see why he would be giving a 50-50 call. So I was okay with either way. If that was a Forest player, I'd probably be upset. But, at the end of the day, that's how the game was reffed. At least he was consistent in that aspect. So no, I wasn't. The Villa fans I interacted with, that they never brought it up. They're actually, fair play to them. They were pretty level-headed about it. Yeah,
fair enough. I think you're right when you say the referee, led the game in a certain way, and he didn't give anything 50-50. He just was, pretty let a lot of things go. I didn't think it was a foul. I thought, it was a coming together, and Cash went down fairly easily. Anderson didn't really touch him, but Danscape, Elliot Anderson. I mean, what? I know that I've said it before, but still of the season, when he crossed that ball and Elanga's nipped in, Anderson just turned around and looked towards the Peter Taylor stand with his arms up as if to say, see, guys, this is what I can do. What a player we've got on our hands, eh?
Definitely. His relentlessness is obviously what earned us that goal. I think it was a foul. I'm going to disagree on that one as well, but I think it probably was, because I think you could see he just kicks.
But do you want to see them giving us fouls, Dan? Do you want to see them giving us fouls?
I think, yeah, it's 50-50. And the ref, look, you're right about the ref. The ref had a bit of a shocker, really. Like, the decisions he made didn't make a lot of sense. I didn't think they made a lot of sense. And to be honest, I don't think he could see some of those incidents. From where he stood, he's behind it. The players are to the side, so to some extent, I don't know. I think if he didn't see it, he just ignored a lot of stuff. And Anderson's relentlessness now, though, I suppose as a team, the relentlessness to get the ball back. I think Cash messes up twice in that move. He didn't really have the best time for those 5 minutes. He sort of doesn't make much effort to get the ball out, and then he dilly-dallies on the ball a bit there. Also a mistake from Villa to try and play the ball out at that time of the game in that area. So, but Anderson's press, gets the ball, and once he gets into that area, you just pray. You can't really see in the ground where it's going to end up, who's going to get on the end of it. You just pray in the net bulges, basically, and then you just start jumping up and down, and just could not believe it. It's just not really been the Forest way to get those late winners in the Premier League, has it? Like, they can't think of many where we've gone and done that in injury time, at home, coming from behind. So yeah, just like that really was the kind of peak moment of the atmosphere, and after that, you just sort of knew it was our evening, even if there's a few minutes left. So that was definitely the best moment of the season so far at the City Ground, I think. And
Elanga, Richard, just came out of nowhere. It was like a flash that just arrived out of nowhere and put the ball in the back of the net. And Elanga's another player that's come under a lot of stick. And FFTV the other night, when I was there talking to them, their chat is quite anti Elanga. And so I was chuffed to bits that he got his moment, eh?
Yeah, and I think we've been saying, because you can't help but do this at this stage, which is to compare him to Brennan Johnson, and so when you think about what Brennan Johnson's evolution was as a Forest player, there's these moments where you could start to see the light bulb go on. I hate to use that phrasing because it sounds so elementary, but the concept of the intelligent side of the football player starting to elevate, starting to progress. And he's at a certain angle. When you watch Anderson, I think it's at a lower angle, Anderson comes around and you can see off to your right, Anthony's seeing what's unfolding and reacting and moving into a perfect position. That's the kind of thing he can do because his pace allows him to do that. And he's not so slight and so lacking in physicality that he can't get around players, right? And so I love seeing that from him. I hope we continue to see that from him, because we all understand, and I know this is just me being redundant here, but the raw material is there to be an elite footballer. And when he has moments like that, what you hope that does, because he is such a confidence player, when he gets into that point where he maybe takes those kinds of successes and then just uses that as a catalyst to continue to build him as a footballer, I think there's amazing things that can happen, because there's a reason why Newcastle valued him relatively high, because they see the same things I think we see. It's just the consistency of those moments that we want. And I hope for him that just alleviates some of the pressure and allows him to thrive, because I just think there's so much more to come from him. And he's 21 years old, 22. I mean, he's still so young, has so much ahead of him.
Yeah. So we closed the game out, Danscape. Back to you, because Nuno didn't have a Morato to bring on to go to a back three. He instead had the master himself, Master Willy Bolly. We saw him come into the Garibaldi red. How did it make you feel to see your main man, Dan?
I'll be totally honest. I was crapping it because I thought, if he comes on now in this position, 2-1 up, we've got all this momentum in our way. If he makes a bloody mistake now, I'm going to have to ditch my posters. I'm going to, all this money I've spent on Willy Bolly, it's going to be gone. But the reality is, he made a couple of really good tackles. Like,
I'm going to say he did.
Really good battles. Jules won, get the second ball. So yeah, he was on for 3 or 4 minutes of play, and he just came on and did the absolute job he needed to do. And he enjoyed it as well. Like, after the game, you could tell he really enjoyed being back out there. So, yeah, good to see him still at that level.
And it does mean that Forest are in fourth in the table. We are above Manchester City by a point. We're going into the heavier Christmas schedule. We're on the 15th of December. And it just is magical to see our team, our club, sitting in the Champions League places. Whether we finish there or not, who knows? But we'll be keeping an eye on certain Dream Tracker a bit later on and seeing how we might fare. But enjoy it, Forest fans, because we are currently sitting fourth in the Premier League. All right, time for a very quick break.
This York shop is a cheese lover's paradise. Based on Grape Lane, the Cheese Trader is home to a wide range of beautiful specialty cheeses, including its scrumptious camembert and famous charcoal cheddar. Plus, there's some delicious relishes and chutneys to pair with your favorite bite. Not just selling it, the Cheese Trader offers a high-level, tasty and delightful street food menu. Try their loaded fries and hot cheese toasty, and their posh cheese on toast is sure to be the best you've ever had. Owned by Forest fan Stu Freestone, the Cheese Trader proudly sponsors Talking Reds, and you can enjoy 10% off every order you place simply by quoting Talking Reds in person, on email or through Instagram. The Cheese Trader and Talking Reds, cheesy as hell.
Yes, indeed, the Cheese Trader. You know all about his speciality cheeses. I'll say no more. We are going to say this to you for the first time.
Merry Christmas!
Yes, it is indeed. Just a couple of weeks until Christmas itself. And following yesterday's magical win at the City Ground, we thought we'd get the Garibaldi Bard back involved with our goal scorers and our wonderful manager. Here we go.
Last Christmas I gave Nuno my heart, and on Boxing Day we beat Newcastle away. Next year we'll be on the biz, playing Barcelona. You better watch out, you better not cry, you better not pout, I'm telling you why. Milenkovic is taking you down. Step into Christmas, see Anthony Elanga running down the wing forever and ever. No one can catch him, he's like lightning. Step into Christmas, we're going Champions League.
Oh, yes, I love that little add-on at the end there. Richard, our IT guy, Fantastic work there, brother. Thank you very much indeed. We are fourth in the Premier League, and of course, we salute Mr. Marinakis as well for everything he's done for the club since he took over. The Forest women played today in their League Cup, and they managed to secure a 2-1 win away at Middlesbrough. So a big well done to Forest women. Another win for them this season, and they go on, I believe, into the quarterfinals. I think I saw of that cup. I might be wrong. It might be the semis, but it's one of the two. So well done to the Forest women. Absolutely fantastic. And also as well, keeping the Christmas theme going, I've got to give you this. I put it on social media, but here comes day 15 in the Advent calendar.
The Talking Reds Nottingham Forest Advent Calendar. Let's see who's behind door number 15. A Forest legend who deserves real recognition as the last Nottingham Forest captain to lift the FA Cup in 1959. The one and only Jack Burkett. Have a very Merry Christmas.
Yes, indeed. We wanted to make sure that we acknowledged the fantastic FA Cup win in 1959. Jack Burkett, a midfielder, he made over 500 senior appearances, and that was a club record for a good while as well for Forest between 1947 and 1962. He scored 15 goals, and he was the captain as we won the FA Cup in 1959. Our history is rich, and our heroes of 59 perhaps don't get as much of the spotlight as they deserve, but we definitely salute Jack and that entire team. The FA Cup's coming up, boys, and we've been drawn to play Luton Town. So, thinking about the FA Cup, Bruce, is it a competition that you'd like to see Forest go for?
Yes, yeah, and I look at it as a competition where we can get these guys like Carlos and Sosa more playing time, even Iwanyi up front. But those guys should be able to take on a Luton Town pretty easily. Knock on wood. But no, I'm excited for that reason in particular to see these guys that haven't been able to get as much playing time as they probably should. So I'm excited for a cup run. Our second team could be able to do a run themselves. And when Murillo went out and Maratz came on, I showed depth because, as Danscape was so excited to see when we needed a third defender come on, Willie Bally came on. And we didn't miss a beat. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see these guys play.
Fantastic. I wanted to quickly just hop back as well because, Dan, we didn't do this.
I'm the scat man.
Yes, indeed. We're still finishing off talking about the Forest Villa match. And, of course, Danscape is with us, the stat man. So, Dan, we're running out of time, about maybe 10 minutes left. So, whiz us through your stats, if you will.
Well, anyone who's watched the last couple will see that we've got the radar chart again. And the usual pattern with this is the more red you see, the better the performance overall. So this is a snapshot of attacking and defensive elements. And, the red on the chart is this game. The faint blue line in the background is the Man United game by comparison. And you can see how much more sort of dominant this performance was compared to that, which was a little bit fortunate in some ways. So on this one, most notably, it's our best pass completion rate of the entire season. So, I think I noticed that, they just seemed to be a little bit crisper and sharper with the passing. You mentioned Hudson-Odoi. He was certainly one of those players who just didn't give the ball away. And expected assists as well is the highest I think we've ever had since promotion, is like the X-assist score. So all of our 90-odd games since promotion, that was the highest score we've had since we've been back.
Okay. The next slide you've got on defence.
Yeah, so this is just sort of seeing how much work we had to do defensively. And to some extent, we actually had to do a lot less than we did against Man United. So in terms of the amount of tackling, we had to do more tackling, but a lot less in the way of blocking shots and passes around our box and clearances out of our box. So again, suggesting that the game was played in that middle part of the park. And they never really caused us too many problems in and around our area. They didn't really put the ball in the box. They didn't really test us aerially, anything like that. But tackles in the attacking third is the one that stands out there, because that's us on the front foot, putting pressure on them in their defensive third, which is exactly how that final goal came around. So we did more of that, and other than that, they didn't cause us a huge amount of problems, as we know from the shots and things they didn't have in the game.
Okay, and you've also given us this set of stats here.
Yeah, so this is just going through. Every now and then there's a game whereby some of the numbers will be the best we've had since promotion, and I just like to celebrate those because we're getting like 90 odd games in now. So if we're still improving, and these games can stand out. So I mentioned that most expected assists, highest pass completion percentage, second highest passes into the final third since promotion. If you think of all the teams we've played, we've done that against Villa. Now that's a good stat to have. Most short passes completed, which is a very random one. And the last two are particularly random in that it's the fewest throw-ins we've had in a game and the fewest dead balls in a game. So I'm not sure anyone will be printing those last two on a T-shirt and saying, I was there when Forest had the fewest throw-ins against Aston Villa. It's the same because we were very threatening from dead balls, so we could have done with a few more.
Very good. Okay, guys. So you know me, I like to come up with some mad little segments to finish things off. So this is going to be running over the next few episodes or so, and this is called the Booby Prize. Yes, we are now going to be on the trek to ask you guys who you think is Nottingham Forest's worst ever signing. Okay, we're going to do it in a group of 4. So I'm going to give you 4 players tonight, and you're going to be picking in the chat. I'm going to put the poll up. Wolfie was kind enough to tell me how to do it. So then we're going to put our first poll in the chat, and you're going to pick who you think is the worst Forest signing from the following players. The first one we have is Neil Harris. He was a Millwall legend when he joined us in 2004, but he flopped on Trent's side. He had his only goal in 37 appearances, coming in a 4-0 win at Chesterfield in 2006. So player number 1 is Neil Harris. The poll's coming momentarily. The second player is Scott Dobie. He was a hard-working striker, done well at West Brom, cost Forest $525,000 from Millwall in 2005, but he just could not hit the proverbial barn door, scoring just 3 times in 41 games before joining Carlisle in 2008. Scott Dobie, player number 2. Player number 3, Salvatore Matricano, one of the triple Italians that joined us under David Platt. He had a bit of a ligament injury, which possibly scuppered his progress at Forest as a centre-half, playing only 13 times. He had his contract terminated and he went off back to his homeland, joining Benevento. So Matricano's player number 3. And then player number 4, Matt Turner. When the ball was at his feet, every Forest fan looked terrified. And believing he was a number 1 goalkeeper at this level was recruitment at its worst. Goodness me. There you go, guys. So on the screen, you've got the choice. I'm putting the poll in the chat now. So comment, all the people commenting, if you could pick who you think out of those 4. This is basically like a World Cup knockout, if you like. You tell us who you think is the worst one out of these 4. We've got Neil Harris, Scott Dobie, we've got Salvatore Matricano, and Matt Turner. I'm going to let the poll run. Whilst we're doing that, I'll just remove them off as well because back to you, Dan, to take us through the European Dream Tracker.
When you said it was the Booby Prize round, I thought it was going to have some kind of link to Paul Morley for some reason. I don't know why. The Greg Mitchell European Dream Tracker. We are up to 28 points after 16 games, which is exactly double the number of points we had after 16 games last season, just to show how far better this season is. And yeah, we still need to get to 29 points at the end of Tottenham. So we still need a point after these next 2 games to kind of keep on track. But we have got a couple of preferable games after that. So, I just want to beat Brentford, regardless of this tracker, regardless how our season was going. I just really want to beat Brentford anyway. So hopefully we're miles above this line next time out.
I think that it's looking good for Forest on the European glory. There's 1 or 2 are asking where is Salenzi. Like I said, guys, this is just the first group. There'll be more bad players to come in the future pod. So the winner of this poll goes through to the final. I should say that. So whoever wins this poll goes through to the final. Anna says, I've got to be honest, I don't even know some of these guys. to be honest with you, Anna, we can't remember them either. They were in and out in a flash, like someone else I know. We've also got Jackie Howard saying, I was thinking Salenzi too. So he's a player that stands out as being not a great signing. Any one of you guys remember some of these signings I'm talking about? You got any memories? I mean, Bruce, you've only been a fan of Forest for a few years, so I'll talk to you about Matt Turner. I mean, is he as bad as I've made out?
Unfortunately, yeah, I was really hoping he would work out for Forest. Obviously, he's our number one for the States. So, but he was an absolute disaster. No, Turner is not a Forest player anymore. Friar Tuck,
Crystal Palace.
Yeah,
That's true.
The amount of blunders. I mean, now he'll make some blunders for the States, keeper, but it was not as much for us. Obviously, the level of competition, because we're over here playing, Costa Rica and some other third world country, and they're not Premier League teams. I'll just put it that way. So it was a level above his talent.
Okay. Well, I've ended the poll because we're out of time, and on 67%, it was a massive victory for this player to go through to the final. Yes, it is Matt Turner, who's been decided by this chat on this podcast to be the worst player out of those four. So there we go. We'll put Matt Turner through to the next round, and we'll have another look at some other Forest legends in the next podcast. Time is up, guys. Just gone past the hour mark. It's been a fantastic win for Forest. Bruce, any final thoughts before we go?
Yeah, no, enjoy the ride. This I mentioned it to begin the podcast. Villa is a very good squad, and they played us very tight, and we kept up with them. And that's a team that they may not win the Champions League, but they're going to compete, and they've been playing well there. And we kept up with them, and obviously we beat them. So it's a good time to be a Forest fan. I'm excited. I'm excited for the future because Europe is in the picture right now, as Danscape's dream tracker says, and as long as we keep this pace up, it's a possibility.
Certainly is. Okay, Dan, over to you. Final thoughts.
Shout out Nico Williams. I don't know if we mentioned him enough because he had a brilliant game. Like if you compare his stand-in at left back against Villa compared to Niakati's stand-in at left back against Villa last season, like Williams just absolutely bossed that side of the pitch. He was brilliant. I thought it was interesting to see Anderson and Gibbs-White play deeper with Jota in the 10 as a way of chasing the game. Again, that seemed to work really well. And yeah, it just feels right, doesn't it? It just feels like we're in that great mix of being on course for something. Like there's a goal there, but there's actually no pressure behind it. So there's not that pressure behind it that you worry about, that fear. So it feels like that promotion season where it's kind of just nice to have the goal, but you're not going into it thinking, oh, we need this. And that's a good place to be.
Richard, 28 points at this point in this season. None of us saw it coming. We haven't got time to look at our predictions because we're going to be here forever, but we will do that on Thursday. We'll go back and look at our predictions on Thursday. But just before we go, Richard, I want you just to sum up for us how you're feeling, because, since you and I have become best friends and started the podcast, we talk a lot about Forest. We talk a lot about the impact that the club's had on us from it being introduced from family members. And I know your grandfather, a huge part of your life, sadly no longer with us. I want to ask you, what would he be making of all this?
How in the world oh man. Okay. So I was actually literally going to talk about that. That's amazing. See, Greg and I are mind melded, man. It's amazing. So he, honestly, the Fawaz era, and I think you mentioned this about Mick as well, your cousin Mick.
Yeah.
It really soured a lot of things. I mean, this is a man who's literally been living and breathing this club since he was a child, going to matches as a kid with his dad before he passed away at an early age, unfortunately. But I think he would be about as elated as any human being you can imagine, just because of what a lot of us have seen leading up to this point. Like, I remember feeling very emotional, not only for the club and seeing us get into the Premier League, but thinking about the fact that had he been alive, he would have been there. That would have been the one time, even in his 90s, that he probably would have stretched himself a little bit, called his usual guy to get down to London, who he used to when he would take a plane over to the US, called that guy, said, I'm getting down to Wembley. I don't care what happens. I don't care if I have to be hooked up to oxygen. I don't care what it requires. That's where I want to be. That's the kind of person he was. He was very passionate. He's a very unassuming guy, very quiet. But when it came to football, it was a completely different human being. Right. And I witnessed that firsthand when we were in the city ground. So I can only fathom how he would feel. And knowing that he was there, right, he physically went to those European Cup finals. I have the programs. Literally, he brought them and gave them to me. He would be so ecstatic to see the kind of progress we've made at this club. And yeah, it's hard not to get emotional about it because everything about this club is tied to him for me. And I just hope we continue to honor him the way that we have, and the rest of the many, many fans like him who are either past or are elderly and can't attend the matches anymore. And I can only imagine the kinds of things they've seen and just the ebbs and flows over the decades, and to see them getting back to more of what we consider the glory days is just, it's incredible. It's hard to even articulate, to be honest with you.
No, you sum it up well. And what we want to do on this podcast is just to celebrate all fans and celebrate how we, come to the club. As I said before, I only picked up Forest really because of my dad, and literally one of the highlights of my week is going to my dad's to watch the match with my dad and my son. So the three of us together, it means more to me than I could ever possibly tell you. To be able to sit and watch matches, it's absolutely fantastic, and we're all going crazy and we're all shouting at the TV, and it's magical. So I know that hopefully that resonates with a lot of people out there that have got family and friends that, enjoy the ride, guys. It's going to be a brilliant season, and, we are here for it. I want to quickly say thanks to Jackie. He says, I love your format on here, Greg and Richard. Looking forward to the next one. Thanks for coming along, Jackie. And for everyone listening, please hit like on this video. It does us a massive favor. You can hit like on every video. It gets our awareness out there. You've only got to subscribe once. So push the subscribe button if you haven't done already. We hit the magical 900 mark. And my dream is for it to get to 1,000 by Christmas, or at least the 31st. Thanks, Wolfie, saying congrats on 900. You did a massive favor to us again with pushing some of your viewers over to us as well. It's so generous, and we're really grateful for that. Forest content, and it's a bit wacky. Greg loves the sound effects. He loves an intro. So if you fancy coming back and seeing us again, we hope you will. But enjoy the ride, guys. Brentford next, and we'll see you next time.